Good morning, everybody. I have a very important message for all Queenslanders between Cairns and Mackay, and the information that we are about to give is critical and it is time sensitive. I want to start with residents living in what's known as the Black Zone in the Townsville area. That's those lower lying suburbs that have been identified and door-knocked in recent days, and that is to evacuate by midday. Now, residents were asked to prepare yesterday and we had mobilised people on the ground, but we're now asking those residents to leave by midday for their safety. Those suburbs are Railway Estate, Hermit Park, Anoomba, Adalia, Cludon and Rosslea. Now, there will be further updates coming during the day, and if you are in a suburb outside of there and you feel that you need to leave, please do seek information. But if you are in those suburbs, you are being asked to leave, and officers from the Australian Defence Force, police, continue to go door to door to ram home that message, but we're asking you to leave for your safety. If it is possible, please go with family and friends. Ultimately, that's the best place to be. There are evacuation centres that have been opened for those people who don't have access to that, one in Heatley and one at the Townsville Sports Precinct. They are open and we're asking you to go there by midday, but if you do have access to family and friends, please take that option. I've heard some people referring to the 2019 event and comparing this one. There is more rain to come, and there is the prospect of record rainfalls and therefore that event being reached, those conditions. Now, I'm just asking people, just take the precautions, prepare for the worst, listen to the advice. Please don't discount this. This is a serious event and we're asking people to heed the advice as it comes to hand. I want to turn to Ingham and start with some terrible news. There has been the loss of a life in floodwaters in Ingham, and that's a really tight-knit community. And our thoughts and prayers are with the family. I just want to discuss the situation in Ingham. Locals in Ingham refer to the 1967 flood. That's one of the large historic floods in that area. The Herbert reached 15.2 metres in that flood. It's currently at 14.89 metres and rising. It's expected to reach similar levels to 1967 at some stage during the day. So if you are in harm's way, we're asking residents to please seek a safety, and indeed if you need assistance, please reach out for it. Again, there's an evacuation centre that's been set up at the Ingham State High School. You can go there. If you've got the opportunity to go to family and friends, please do so. Listen to the advice, and if you have the opportunity to leave, if you believe that's the safe option to do so, please do that. I just want to go through some of the warnings across the broader area, and again ask Queenslanders to stay connected on our disaster website, which I'll talk a little bit about more in a moment. But there's a major flood warning for the Horton River catchment, a major flood warning for the Herbert River, major flood warning for the Ross and Bowley rivers, and a flood warning for the Black River and Bluewater Creek. There remains a moderate flood warning for the Tully, but that is very close to being a major flood warning, so please keep an eye on that, as well as the Murray rivers. Initial minor flood warning for the Pioneer, for the Upper Burdekin River, for the Don, for the Johnston River catchment, and also a minor flood warning for the Mulgrave River and a flood warning for the Russell River. Flood watch remains for the Burdekin and Proserpine catchments. We have two significant announcements regarding support packages, and there'll be a little more to come, but I do want to thank the Minister McAllister, who's joining us from the federal government, and thank you very much for coming to us today. Firstly, personal hardship assistance has been activated for Townsville, as suburbs of Townsville, as well as Gordonvale, which was impacted earlier last week. There will be further announcements shortly for other areas, and we ask people to stay connected with that. Disaster recovery funding, that's packages of assistance available for councils to be able to go in and recover, already active for Townsville, Burdekin, Palm and Cairns, and again we'll be having more to say shortly on other local government areas that have been impacted. But I do want to take the opportunity to thank the local mayors as well as the disaster coordination groups and the work that they have done on the ground. Community hubs will be mobilised right across the area. These are a one-stop shop for you to get the support services you need to be able to connect into these funding assistance packages. That information will be available on the website, disaster.qld.gov.au. Stay up to date with those. So there will be a permanent presence throughout the recovery timeframe. There will also be pop-up disaster hubs that will emerge to make sure that people can have that connectivity in their local area. Our commitment to people is that that will be there as you rebuild and need that assistance from all levels of government. Crews currently are still door knocking in impacted areas, and I do want to take the opportunity to thank all of those crews that have been involved. We took the time to mobilise early, and I want to assure residents that there is resources that are on the ground. For example, there's been 16 rescues from Swiftwater teams, and many of them have been pre-deployed days ahead of the event, and we're very glad that we did, and they've done a mighty job and will continue to. We've got officers from the Queensland Reconstruction Authority who are also on the ground, police, fireys, ambos, right across the state. And I mentioned yesterday, but I'll say it again, local government has also played its role, and councils in non-impacted areas have been so willing to send assistance to help, and we're very grateful for that, as well as what the state agencies have done. We've had many requests for assistance from the SES. I just want to turn briefly to power outages. There's over 2,000 properties in the Townsville and Palm area, well over 2,000 in fact, that are without power at the moment. But just in the last few moments, we've been notified that the substation at Ingham will be going offline. And that means that there will be significant power outage for that community. And that power outage will be off for some time. And that will make our recovery efforts very difficult. I want residents to know that we'll be doing all we can to mobilise in those areas to provide assistance, but that has just happened moments ago. I mentioned about the pre-deployment. We sent several hundred ergon crews north ahead of the disaster event, and they are already out and about, and we want to thank them. Nothing gives the community a greater sense of hope than to see the men and women from Ergon out and about and doing, just providing that comfort and reconnecting people as they go out. And people need to know that they are on the ground and will be for the long term. I want to provide an update on some critical infrastructure, and I just want to start with roads. The Bruce Highway remains cut at multiple locations, and that lifeblood of regional Queensland is again offline, and that means the ability to restock is always impeded by that, and that's something that we will be working on to reconnect in the short term, but long term to get the kind of highway that residents deserve. Local roads are moving, obviously constantly changing, so if you do want to know the status, you can go onto that disaster website and check. But ultimately, my advice is stay off the roads. Unless you are in the situation where you are in those black zone suburbs and you need to evacuate by midday, ideally, we really don't want you on the roads. We want you staying safe and sound and waiting for the worst to pass. And again, there is a lot of rainfall ahead, and Matt will discuss that from the Bureau a little later on. I just want to talk about schools, because obviously what we need to do is provide clarity and give parents, teachers and carers the lead time they need to be able to plan for what tomorrow looks like, and I wanted to clear that up early. We have a website which is closures.qld.edu.au, or you can Google just school closures Queensland, as I just did, and it takes you straight to there. By 1 p.m. today, all of the affected state schools will be on there, and that will be a decision taken to give people plenty of time to plan. That portal also has access to private schools, Catholic schools, and some early childhood facilities. Now, we're working with those sectors to be able to provide their information. They may continue to go directly to people in those centres, but we're doing all we can to get that information uploaded. But my commitment is that today people will be able to see what those closures are. And those closures will be right across that area. So I'm asking people to have a look at that by 1 p.m. and then use that as the information you need to plan tomorrow. Finally, there will be a long and difficult recovery and rebuild, and I commit to every Queenslander that will occur. Today's focus is on safety. Today's focus is on heeding the advice. And I think Queenslanders have seen we've done a lot to prepare for this, and now it's up to you. It's up to you to stay safe. It's up to you to heed the advice, and then it's up to us to be able to respond. And I have every faith that we're going to be able to. And the fact that you've seen all three levels of government, you've seen all those agencies with their shoulder to the wheel, shows a great willingness to do that. I'm asking Queenslanders to do all they can to make sure that you stay safe, and that means listening to warnings, responding as quickly as you can, helping out friends and family, and I'm very confident we'll get through this. I will hand over to the Deputy Commissioner, who has some more information as well as an update regarding Ingham. Thanks.
Thank you, Premier. Sadly, we are aware that this morning an SES boat responding to assist members of the public in Ingham capsized at around 9:20. There were 6 people on board the vessel. 5 people were recovered safely, but sadly 1 person was deceased. We understand the deceased member is not a member of the SES, but is a member of the public. I really can't go into much further detail in relation to this matter, as it's still unfolding as we speak, but I can say it will be fully investigated. But in the meantime, I just want to ensure and make sure that all support will be provided to our emergency services and the Ingham community. They're a very tight-knit community. This is tragically, sadly, it highlights the dangers and the risks of these events, and that's why we are engaging with members of the community and asking them to heed the advice of emergency services workers. But these type of events do put our members of the community at risk, but also it puts our emergency services workers and our emergency services volunteers at risk. And I just want to finish on this matter by absolutely commending the ongoing work of our emergency services personnel and also our emergency services volunteers, who we have seen for days now responding to support our community. Last night and this morning, we're continually to see significant flooding right from areas of Cairns right through to Townsville. We are expecting that flooding today in the black zone, and that is why those evacuations are being carried out. But we have seen our crews responding to dozens of jobs overnight and throughout this morning already in areas such as Ingham, Halifax, Cardwell, and other isolated communities that we are seeing. We have a large number of isolated communities right from pretty well Innisfail to Townsville, and I can assure those communities that we have resupply and support services in place for you. This emerging response has issued a number of emergency alerts, and the emergency alerts have been issued for Townsville, for Ingham and for Cardwell. In Ingham, the emergency alert was also issued for Hinchinbrook this morning, telling people to take shelter now. As we heard from the Premier, the Ingham pump station heights are expected to be significant, and we are expecting impacts to power and other critical infrastructure in these areas. So if you are choosing to shelter in place and stay in your premises, please be aware that there will be impacts to critical infrastructure such as power, water and water treatment. So if you need to leave, please make a decision to leave now while it's safe to do so. In Cardwell, we're seeing a different event evolving. We're seeing flash flooding evolving in Cardwell, and we know that we've already got some homes impacted in Cardwell, and there's been a number of swiftwater rescues in that area. And it just goes to show that it's not just the rivers that are flooding our towns, but it's also these intense rainfalls that the Bureau have been forecasting, and we're seeing responses there very rapidly. I just want to finish off on Townsville to say that the police and emergency services and ADF, as the Premier indicated, have been out door knocking this morning. Please, can I appeal to you that if you are being asked to leave your premise in Townsville, please do so, because it is really dangerous for you, your family and the emergency services if we need to come back and rescue you at times of crisis. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So that is obviously incredibly sad news about the death that has taken place. This will be a very hard time for that person's family, for their community, and for the emergency services personnel in that area. I offer my condolences to them, and I know that all Australians will be thinking of those people at this very difficult time. More broadly, it has been a very difficult couple of days for people in North Queensland and far North Queensland, and there is more to come. I wish to place on record my gratitude to first responders, all of the emergency personnel, our police, the ADF, all of those people who have been involved in recent days in supporting their communities. As the Australian Government, we are working very closely with the Crisafulli Government to make sure that the resources are in place to deal with these circumstances. Amongst other things, we have positioned one of our large heavy lift helicopters in far north Queensland to provide support if required, and we are working closely with the Crisafulli Government to understand what additional support we might be able to provide. As the Premier has indicated, we are today activating recovery support for some communities. Personal hardship assistance has been activated for defined areas in Townsville and targeted Gordonvale addresses. There is a $180 emergency payment available and up to $900 for a family of 5 or more. There are other forms of financial aid that include cover for damaged household goods and income-tested grants for structural repairs and the reconnection of services. As the Premier indicated, we are also announcing support for councils in Townsville, Burdekin, Palm Island and Cairns, and this will help councils undertake counter-disaster operations, emergency road repairs and the reconstruction of essential public assets. We understand that this is the beginning of a recovery process, and it is our intention to work incredibly closely with the Queensland Government to continue to provide support. I'll finish by saying this. In an emergency, it is a state government that leads. But as the Australian Government, we want to be good partners. And it is our intention to stick with the people of Queensland through this disaster. It is an ongoing and complex situation, but we are here through this period and into the recovery.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Premier, and good morning. Areas of North Queensland between Cairns and Mackay continue to record very heavy rainfall over the past week. We've seen many locations, widespread areas of over 500 millimetres, and point locations over that week that have seen over a metre of rain. Over the past 24 hours, the heaviest falls have occurred between Tully and Ayr, with 24-hour totals widespread in that 200 to 300 millimetre range and isolated totals above 600 millimetres, near and to the south of Ingham, in particular around Townsville. We expect to see continued heavy to intense rainfall throughout today, and the pattern for today is quite similar to yesterday. That rainfall will continue into Monday, and then there will be an easing trend as we move into Tuesday and Wednesday. But it is still a very active period of the monsoon, so we'll see continued daily totals in that 50 to 100 millimetres as we move into Wednesday and Thursday of the week. A severe weather warning is current for heavy rainfall, and it does include damaging winds, as the low is causing strong easterly winds onto the coastal areas. This rainfall is likely to continue to cause dangerous and life-threatening flash flooding and riverine flooding in catchments from Cairns to Mackay, obviously including Townsville and Ingham. The Premier went through the details of the flood warnings, but I'll just reiterate a couple of key points. Major flood warnings are current for the Ross, the Boyle, Horton and Herbert rivers, and we're expecting levels to reach close to the 1967 15.2 mark at Ingham Pump Station later today. There are numerous minor to moderate flood warnings right along the coast, and we do have flood watches still current for the coastal and adjacent inland areas between Ayr and Mackay, and it is likely that those will be updated to be minor to major warnings as we move into the coming days. This rainfall, as I mentioned, has been driven by this active monsoon trough and the low that's embedded in the trough sitting just off the coast of Ingham. That low is expected to continue with that intensity today and then slowly ease and drift inland as we move into Wednesday and Thursday. This is a really significant weather event. We've already seen those extreme rainfall totals, as I said, with some locations receiving over a metre of rain. The situation continues to evolve and we see continued bands of very heavy rainfall moving onto the coast. So naturally we're working really closely with our emergency services partners and councils, and severe weather warnings and flood warnings will be updated regularly in response to this rapidly evolving event. All of those warnings you'll find on the Bureau's app and on our website. Thanks.
Had a couple of references to that
It is the key reference point at 15.2 metres. There have been actually changes in the floodplain. The Bureau team are really closely checking how it relates to some of the longer records that we've got from other events earlier in the century. 1927, I believe, is another one that stands out, but we are checking those.
Is it likely to be matched or surpassed?
We're likely to match the 1967, which is that key reference I mentioned earlier. That's 15.2 metres. It's currently sitting at around 14.89 and rising just very slightly. So we're expecting that to continue depending on the rainfall this afternoon and as we move through the overnight period tonight.
Deputy Commissioner. I know you said the situation in England was still unfolding, but do you have any detail around the gender, the age of the person who's died today?
I am able to confirm that it is a female member of the public. That's about all I can confirm. I can confirm that the SES were responding to a rescue this morning when this is taking place.
Do we know whether those are members of the same household or anything?
I'm sorry, I really cannot go into those details because, like I said, it's just evolving and we need to engage with the family and the community.
I understand it's evolving. Do you have any indication about how this is happening?
Well, no, I don't have the specifics, and that's why it's going to be investigated. But can I say, we are responding, and not only SES, but also Swiftwater Rescue, also Water Police, are responding in floodwaters, rapidly evolving floodwaters, to support members of the community. And these are dangerous situations, We've seen what the floodwaters look like. There's debris in the waters. I'm not speculating on this, but they are dangerous operations that our emergency services and our emergency volunteers are carrying out.
Do you know how many people on that boat were members of the public and how many were SES personnel?
There were two SES personnel and 4 members of the public on board.
In terms of getting support into Ingham, how do you plan on doing that?
Well, there's various ways, but at the moment we're looking at high clearance vehicles to support Ingham, but also aerial assets to support Ingham. What the Premier said about the power being de-energised into Ingham will put pressure on us to ensure that we can put resupply services into there, food services, water services into that town. And I can assure you that both the local management group and the district management group are well practiced at doing this. So, we have plans in place for it, and we'll activate those plans today.
Will you be utilising some of those military resources into that area?
Well, that's a conversation that will go on right now. We will look at all resources available to us because, can I stress, it's not just Ingham. It's also those communities outside of Ingham, like Halifax, like Garoo. We have those other small isolated communities, and we have really good resupply activities in place, and we'll take every opportunity in the breaks of the weather that we see to be able to do that resupply. As we saw in Jasper last year, our emergency response operations are often compromised by high winds and high rainfall, which prevents our aerial assets flying. So the moment we see those breaks in the weather, we take those opportunities.
Just on those aerial assets, Deputy Commissioner, the Federal Minister noted the heavy lift was on standby. Have there been any circumstances, any incidents so far where aerial assets have been used in rescues?
We tasked an aerial asset out of Cairns this morning. We weren't able to fly our aerial assets out of Townsville this morning, and unfortunately it was one of those instances where the weather and wind were that severe that the aerial asset had to turn away and we had to do it by boat.
So speaking to a lot of people on the ground in Townsville specifically, as the Premier made reference to before, a lot of them don't feel like it's going to reach that 2019 level and are opting to stay. What do you have to say to those people?
Well, yesterday the police, emergency services and ADF went and door knocked every single resident in that black zone, and we gave them one-on-one advice on what to expect. And I can tell you that our flood modelling is indicating that we need to have those evacuations in that black zone completed by midday today. We will start to see the impacts in those areas, our modelling is indicating, from about 1 o'clock and peaking later on this afternoon. So can I say to those residents that are staying there, we have personally engaged with you and asked you to leave, and we're asking you to leave again today. If you choose to stay there, you are putting yourself at risk, you are putting any family members that are with you at risk, and you're putting the emergency services and our emergency volunteers at risk. And you're taking those emergency services and volunteers away from other tasks to come back and support you.
Where is the highest threat to life right now?
Well, we have 3 areas of concern right now that we're dealing with, and that is Townsville, as has been indicated. It is also Ingham, and it is also Cardwell.
If I might, I just so those black suburbs that have been zoned, it's not an if or a but. It's a you must leave, and you must leave by midday. Now there will be further updates, and as the analysis unfolds, there might be other areas where there'll be further advice. But right now, those suburbs that are identified there, you must leave. And again, Railway Estate, Hermit Park, Anoomba, Rosslea, Adalia and Cludon, you must leave, and if you do so by midday, it'll be safe to do so, and we'll have further updates. Claire, regarding your question around Ingham, this is threatening to be the worst flood that Ingham has seen in a century. And the 1927 event that there's not a lot of information of, that was a larger event. But this is threatening to be as big as 1967, which is the flood that everybody uses as the benchmark. It'll be bigger than 1977, it'll be bigger than 1998. This is a once in a century occurrence for that community, and we just need to let them know that we'll be there in the weeks, months and years ahead.
I mean, you detailed, better than anybody how tight-knit that Ingham community is. How will this affect them? How do you expect that they'll rally around them?
It'll cut very deep, Hayden. Very much so, mate. I know that community well enough to know that they will rally, but this will hurt. It's a small town, and people matter.
Your family members?
Oh, they're okay.
And expanding on what the Deputy Commissioner said, do you think there is enough resources to support those people there?
There will be more resources in the days ahead, but Queenslanders need to know that they were positioned in place earlier and in larger numbers than ever before. And I hope that gives people confidence about how seriously we're taking this event. I addressed you at the start of the disaster season and said that we wouldn't be leaving any stone unturned to prepare, and we did that. And there will be more assets coming in the days, weeks and months ahead. Obviously the challenge now for Ingham is the loss of having the power turned off means that you've got many days of tough recovery. And the Deputy Commissioner spoke about the need to get things in, and it'll be via air, it'll be via high clearance vehicle. It'll be challenging because of the fact that you've got a highway that isn't up to standard. But ultimately, the recovery right across the north will be challenging. And it's not just Ingham and Townsville. There's, there will be parts between Cairns and Mackay where there will be immense damage and dislocation to community. We spoke about Gordonvale and the flooding in some of those homes there at the start of last week. So this is a big event. If you think about the quantum of rain that has fallen in a short period of time, and there is a lot more to go, it shows you that this is a really, really big flooding event. It's of monsoonal proportions.
You've got SES members, South East Queensland heading to Far North Queensland. Do you envisage wanting to tap other states for support?
We'll evaluate that, and the fact that the Minister's here federally today is a really good sign, and one that we're very grateful for.
Where specifically have those 700 urban crews been deployed?
I can get Shane to talk a little bit more, but there were 300 workers from other parts of the state who have gone up to North Queensland. They were positioned in Cairns and Townsville. Now there are already significant ergon bases in both of those centres, as well as there's a sizable ergon crew in places like Ingham as well. But they will be mobilised where they're needed. So at the moment, the quantum of power that's off is not what it will be. It will certainly increase in the days ahead. Like just literally in the last quarter of an hour before we came here, we got the advice about ergon. So you're only dealing with couple of thousand in Townsville and Palm at the moment, there will be significantly more power outages. But residents can take comfort from the fact that there are workers there pre-positioned, and you've all seen them during disaster. They work daylight to dark and beyond, and they work in whatever conditions it takes to get your power back. And people really, really respect and value it, and so do we.
How long are you expecting we may see those power outages across?
I would suggest it'll be several days in Ingham as an absolute starting point. But again, it's an evolving case. So I know on Palm Island we've got some big challenges with some of the lines there, and we had Mayor Lacey this morning on the phone, so we're working out how we can restore power to Palm as well. So there's some challenges.
Just one final thing, the dam gates in Townsville, have they been opening further as that dam fills up?
Yeah, that dam is owned and operated and run by the council. They have guidelines that they follow, and ultimately it's a pretty important piece of infrastructure for that community. It was built as a flood mitigation tool many decades ago, but these days its water storage capacity is a really imperative use for a city of over 200,000 people. So they have guidelines about when they release, and they have to follow those guidelines. And I'll be talking more directly to the council when I'm up there.
Can I just ask on one other matter? Two other matters. Sorry, Star Entertainment, without predicting what might happen or speculating on the viability of that company, is the state government hoping to provide direct financial support to workers if that company does go under?
My request, and indeed my strongest urging, would be for whoever and whatever capacity that comes to keep that facility open, and then the best form can be those workers to have a job. And I don't think it's too much to ask for whoever runs that casino to keep the thing open, because, and both of them, by the way, Cairns, Gold Coast and Brisbane, the facility has been built. The financial complexities and challenges for that company is not the fact that people aren't using it, it's that the build cost was so high, and we know why. So my advice to Star or any future administrator or body or whatever capacity it takes is, if they keep that facility trading, you'll have a very supportive partner in the state government about future opportunities on that site. And I look forward to making sure that that's known very clearly.
Given that the federal government's reviewing the guidelines for sex hormones and puberty blockers, does that affect the state's pause on it, and will you continue your review?
No, it doesn't impact it, and we've made that very clear. And what Canberra do clearly is a matter for Canberra. We took our decision based on what unfolded in Cairns, and on the back of that, we've decided to make sure that we do that review, and that we do it in a way that has one factor, and that is making sure that kids are safe, all kids in the program and other kids. And we've made sure that we've been very sensitive in the way that we've discussed that.
The federal government could take 2 years to deliver its findings. Will you have an outcome for your review before that?
Well, I think the minister's indicated it'll be by the end of the year. Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate your time. Thank you.